Attention, we'll get started. You can see the mother of the minivan dialing 911. The minivan to the right is the mother and her daughter. On the way back from the movies, the car to the left are 4 scary Central School students on their way back. On their way back from, a prom party, heading to another one. Hopefully in a second here you should hear dispatch setting the phones off for the fire department. The sirens you hear are the ambulances and rescue trucks that hold the jaws of life, and they're responding lights and sirens as they would as if it was a serious PI.
Here come more Stratton.
And what you see the chief there behind the car is doing now is he's assessed the situation. He knows now that there's multiple patients critically injured, possibly a deceased. It's unknown right now. On the initial call, it's the fire department and the ambulance. The chief sees the situation and then makes additional calls for additional ambulances and additional resources. now you see Central Bridge Fire Department. The chief is requesting assistance from Central Bridge for an additional ambulance and an additional truck with Jaws of Life. It takes a little while for these guys to get set up. This is just like a real scenario.
We have one bullet. We have one intaker and one
Get the affordable, the channel 3 on it, somebody. So at this point, the chief has assessed the situation, like I said before, and there's approximately 6 patients. That's why you see all these ambulances pull in. Whether or not the situation is serious enough, they may call a helicopter. Here you can hear the Chief's radio transmission. You hear the chief calling, and he used the term LZ. That's the landing zone for a helicopter, and I believe you should see a helicopter overhead shortly. I don't know if anybody caught that, but the sheriff's department was on scene and interviewed the driver of the black car to the left and found that the driver, it was impaired. So routinely, when a police officer finds that somebody's been drinking, that person is going to be interviewed in the back of the ambulance, or if they're not hurt, they'd be interviewed at the side of the road, put through field sobriety tests, and if they were in fact intoxicated, be arrested. So at this point in time, that red ambulance in the center there, the sheriff's department is interviewing the driver of the black car, which was not seriously hurt. And you see the black car struck this minivan head on. The mother is injured, but she was able to get out. Her daughter in the passenger seat was knocked unconscious. They're evaluating her injuries. The three students in the black car, one was ejected through the window, is unconscious, possibly deceased. And we had two injured, critically injured in the back seat. At this point in time, the car is so mangled, we're using the jaws of life to try to gain access to the patients to get them out. All right, what you're seeing now is they've determined that the female student who was ejected through the windshield is in fact deceased. She suffered traumatic injuries, and they covered her with a blanket. Routinely what happens in this situation is they call the Schoharie County coroner. The coroner comes out. As I was saying, the person who got ejected is deceased. A phone call has been made to the Schoharie County coroner. Mike Langen has come down to remove the body. The only person that can pronounce a person deceased at an accident is the coroner. The coroner is here, declare the person deceased, put the person in a body bag, and take him to the funeral home. Now, we have directly in front of us, as you notice, we have a deputy here with the driver of the black car. It was found that the driver of the black car had very minor injuries. She was found, there's a suspicion of alcohol involvement in the accident. So the deputy is doing an investigation, and they're going to run her through some what's called field sobriety tests, which are standard to an accident. And you're going to see this. This is what actually happens in real life. And if everybody's looking straight ahead, they see the deputy giving the driver standardized field sobriety test to determine if the driver is actually intoxicated. We actually do have a helicopter en route. We have two and possibly 3 critically injured people, and if they don't make it to a hospital within a short amount of time, they too could die. So we have a helicopter landing, and if you ever looked out the window in the past, you may have seen a chopper or 2 land in a soccer field. Those were all real scenarios. What the deputy is doing is called the walk and turn test. And what the deputy is doing is asking the driver to walk in a straight line, turn around and take several steps back down that straight line. And there's several things that the deputy looks for to determine if a person's intoxicated. This is the third test. The deputy's asking the driver to do what's called a one-leg stand. And the person is supposed to keep both legs straight. But she's clearly unable to perform that test. Clearly intoxicated. She's being taken into custody. Now, those of you who don't know the law, if you get in an accident when you're intoxicated and anybody is injured, it's vehicular assault. It's a felony. If somebody dies as a result of the accident and the driver is intoxicated, that person then gets charged with manslaughter. And manslaughter, without getting into too much law, the worst is obviously murder. It goes down from murder eventually to manslaughter, when you cause another person's death due to being intoxicated. What you see now is the deputy is reading the driver, who is now the defendant. The deputy is now reading the defendant her Miranda rights, her DWI refusal warnings and Miranda rights. Basically asking her to submit, if she will submit to a chemical test for the purpose of determining the alcohol content of her blood. Once that warning is read, she'll be read her refusal warning, or correction, her Miranda rights. You see off to your right, the EMTs are loading, they're taking one of the patients, critically injured patients, to Esperance ambulance, all the way over to the right. All the way off to the left, you see the deputies have taken the driver into custody. They're now taking that person back to the sheriff's department to conduct the chemical test, better known as the breathalyzer. And that is the test that's admissible in court. That test will be provided to the defendant, and then the person will be charged accordingly. But in an act
Did you have contact with the chopper? Were they en route? One en route back from another call. Their ETA out was 19. 10-4, copy 19. I'll advise 8011. You just advise them of the frequency we're going to be using. Copy 15. 155.713.
And what you just heard there, a little excerpt of the radio transmission, is the chief in the background is contacting dispatch, and the dispatcher is coordinating with the helicopter to come to this location. We'll provide the GPS coordinates to the helicopter, and the helicopter will then punch them into their onboard system and come right to where we're located. In addition to that, the chief gave dispatch the frequency that we'll be using to talk to them directly when they get close. So they get within a mile or two, they'll plug in our frequency, and then we'll talk to them directly and land them wherever we want. In this typical situation, once the helicopter is contacted, it could be a 10 or 15 minute ETA, or estimated time of arrival, before they actually make it here. And what you see still going on is we have critically injured people still trapped in the back of the car, and extrications involving jaws of life can take anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour and a half, 2 hours. Sometimes the car is crushed and folded around the occupants so severely that a lot of cutting and spreading and extrication is required. And that's the situation here. Just to let everybody know, too, the driver, you see here the rear passenger being taken out of the vehicle. Just so everybody else knows, too, the driver of the vehicle who was arrested doesn't face just one count of assault. For every person injured, it's a separate count of assault, vehicular assault. So there's 2 people that were injured in the passenger, or in the minivan, and there were 3 people in the car next to her. So that's 5 counts of felony assault on top of manslaughter for the deceased, on top of a dozen vehicle and traffic tickets, reckless driving, a whole list of stuff. In reality, the driver of that vehicle will get remanded to jail in probably excess of $100,000 or $200,000 bail. You know, I just hope, the idea behind all this is we hope that everybody stays safe during prom season. I graduated here from Schoharie. I went to 3 proms myself in high school. I'm not pretending like I was innocent in high school, but I did make some good decisions, fortunately. So I know what it's like to go out and have fun, and I'm not discouraging that. We just want to make sure when people do go out, they stay safe. All right. I'm being told that the helicopter will be overhead in 7 minutes. So this is a pretty typical response from a helicopter. From the time of the accident to the extrication could be somewhere around a half an hour. So what the helicopter is used for is to shorten the response time from the scene to the hospital. The helicopter will take the patient from the accident scene to a level 1 trauma center, which is Albany Med. From the time they lift off here to the time they touch down at Albany Medical Center is approximately 10 minutes. So 10 minutes versus a 45-minute drive by ambulance could mean the difference between somebody alive or dead. So I just got a patient update. The patient in Central Bridge Ambulance to the right here, facial lacerations and an arm injury. The driver of the minivan, the mother, minor injuries. The person that they're trying to extricate from the back of the ambulance has a cervical injury of some type. That patient there, I'm being told, is unable to move her legs. So they're very careful in stabilizing her back to not cause any additional injuries. I'm being told that the helicopter is landing here in a few minutes and is going to take the driver of the minivan's daughter. I'm being told that that daughter is unresponsive, and they're trying to assess her situation now, but they think if they can maintain her and stabilize her and get her to the hospital soon enough, she might have a chance. So the next step, once all the patients have been cared for, loaded into an ambulance, the fire department then turns their attention on the deceased, or what's called a recovery. At this point in time, it's a recovery. The deceased is being loaded into a body bag. And if you think this is fake, this is actually what happens. As a state trooper, I've been to fatalities, and this is exactly what happens. The coroner throws me a pair of rubber gloves and tells me to grab an arm. So this is the harsh reality. I've been to recoveries and fatalities as an assistant fire chief, and it's the same way. I've been to fatalities where the car's we had to cut the car away to get the deceased out.
We're trying 7-2. 10-4.
So as you heard over the radio, the helicopter was unable to attend, and a lot of times in real situations, for whatever reason, the helicopter gets rerouted to another accident or something closer. This situation, they had a real emergency, and they were just getting back from it, so rather than waiting another 15 or 20 minutes for them to actually get here, we just canceled them. But in this situation, they would have landed out in the soccer field or in the parking lot, and the ambulance would have taken the patient to the helicopter, loaded her in the back, and the helicopter would have taken off. So now the ambulances have their patients, and they're taken off to the hospital. Well, I want to thank everybody for allowing us to put on this little bit of presentation. What you saw is pretty much what really happens. We're going to proceed into the auditorium in a few minutes and answer any questions you have there. So again, I thank you for coming out. See you in a little bit.